Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you again for joining us for today's webinar, Simplify Your SAP BPC 11 Migration. I'm Kristen Tanner, Global Marketing Strategist for Protera Technologies, and I will be hosting today's webinar. We really appreciate all of you taking time out of your very busy schedules to attend today's educational session, and we hope that all of you get all of your questions answered for your SAP BPC 11 migration and make it very successful. Today we will be starting the webinar shortly, but I first wanted to go over a few housekeeping notes. Only our presenters' phones are live. Your microphones have been muted by default to block any background noise. Our presenters will be answering questions at the conclusion of the webinar. If you have a question at that time, please type it into the Q&A function in your chat window. If we don't get to your question during the presentation, I or another member of the Protera team will be sure to follow up with you directly. And lastly, this webinar will be recorded and a link will be made available to all attendees. So now let's get started. Les, do you want to go to the next slide? Excellent. So the objective of today's webinar is to provide a deeper understanding of SAP BPC 11 and how to complete a successful migration project, including your cloud hosting options, and how to take a one-team migration approach that is guaranteed to be less complex with low risk. We are excited to have presenters today from both Protera Technologies and Jump Analytics. Protera is one of the leading global SAP partners with over 20 years of experience. We are proud to say the Protera FlexBridge migration automation platform has delivered 100% project success for over 500 SAP migrations. And we are a leading managed service provider for SAP applications in the cloud. We are also very excited to have Jump Analytics co-presenting today, as they are the leaders in SAP BPC migrations with over 10 years of SAP BPC specific experience, which impressively they are able to complete migrations within mere weeks. So welcome Les, Justin, and Patrick as today's expert presenters. So now I would like to go over today's agenda. Next slide. Which will include an SAP BPC Product Suite update and overview, including what's new, your hosting options for your new BPC 11 environment, how to leverage a one team, one approach to your migration, and we'll finally wrap up with next steps to get started. So now I would like to take it away to Jump Analytics.
Thank you very much, Kristen. So it's Justin McNeely here, partner with Jump Analytics, and happy to be speaking to you today about BPC Product Direction and what's new. Les, if you want to go to the next slide, we'll dig right into it. I've been working with BPC since actually, before the first dates that you see on this chart, actually since before SAP acquired the software back in 2007. So it's been interesting to see the evolution of the product over a number of years. We're really going to be abundantly focused on the top of this chart. That's largely due to the audience that we have on the line today, which is really made up of, for the most part, Microsoft, the Microsoft version of BPC, clients using that particular version. The bottom of the chart is, just quickly, I'll touch on it, speaks to what I'll call legacy at this stage. It's a legacy tool called BWIP, or Integrated Planning, that SAP clients would have been familiar with back in the early 2000s or mid-2000s. That product is still out there and being used by some clients, definitely not one of the targets for innovation for SAP. It's in essentially maintenance and support, but there are some clients that are still trickling along with that particular tool. Back in 2011, you can see that there's a little bit of an alignment with the middle of the chart. That's essentially where some of the functionality that was really deep within BWIP was enhanced with the Planning Application Kit, or PAK, as well as started evolving into an embedded version of the solution and then led towards optimized. So, there's a lot of different terms that, you've probably heard over the years. It's been streamlined a lot in the last year, I guess, or probably in the last 12 months, and I'll speak to that in a moment. But quickly on the top of this chart, again, the target group that's really looking for those migrations is on that yellow path. And, some of those organizations may have even acquired BPC before SAP purchased the product, OutlookSoft, back in 2007. And that's what I was mentioning. I was actually working with OutlookSoft back prior to 2011. Around that time, SAP announced they'd be creating a NetWeaver version, which is really a version that was geared to the SAP clients that sat on the BW platform. And for a number of years, there was a dual release strategy. Essentially, both would be enhanced in tandem, and any fixes, any enhancements, anything around the product roadmap would be mirrored. But in actuality, the Microsoft version of the tool was already very mature. So the first couple of years was a little bit of catch up for the NetWeaver version to gain that same level of functionality. And then along the way, about 2012, the NetWeaver version kind of merged in with a roadmap with standard and embedded versions. Originally, it was called Classic, and then it was rebranded back to Standard, and that's what we refer to today. Those versions are still out there, and there's a lot of NetWeaver clients that are using BPC version 10.1, and there is a migration path to 11. But the focus today is really talking about those Microsoft customers that continued on the Microsoft platform for whatever reason. One of the major reasons was not having a BW platform or an SAP footprint, and being more comfortable maintaining a Microsoft version. So just a couple points to note there. It has been announced by SAP that there's obviously no further enhancements or investment in the Microsoft version of BPC. I know a lot of the folks on the phone, and this won't come as a surprise, and that's largely due to the fact it was a very mature tool. But it was also, they had to kind of figure out what the proper roadmap would be for the large user base, and there is a lot of Microsoft clients still out there. So right now, if you were to look at the SAP product availability matrix, basically it says the end of support and maintenance for the Microsoft version 10.1 is December 2022. So by that time, it's scheduled to end at that point. I will make note that could easily change. SAP could potentially extend it. They've been known to do that in the past, and I'd be missing an important piece if I was to suggest that SAP was going to leave their customers high and dry without a supported application. That would not be the case. However, clients do see the need to take advantage of the latest platform, the go-forward solution, which is BPC 11. And take advantage of any of the innovations with that platform. And I'll talk about the innovations with BPC 11 in just a moment. But basically what you can see from this chart, if you were to summarize everything, all roads are leading to BPC 11 on BW for HANA, which is their in-memory database for supporting that application. BPC 11 was released mid 2017 and has been the go-to BPC solution for clients needing a holistic or a unified platform for budgeting, planning, and consolidation. Les, if you want to go to the next slide, I'll kind of talk a little bit about where that leaves us today. I put this slide together just because I thought it'd be pretty helpful in determining or maybe demystifying some of the different products that are out there, and maybe solidifying what that direction is moving forward. So you've probably heard all kinds of different product versions: standard, embedded, classic, optimized over the years. It's definitely a lot more streamlined. So if you look on the left-hand side, I've got different functional areas that you would need to accomplish with a solution from SAP Planning and Consolidation. And if you take that top line, there could be a scenario where Analytics Cloud would fit the needs of an organization. So that's SAP Analytics Cloud, or referred to as SAC. Where that makes the most sense is where clients have standalone planning requirements. They may not have complex consolidation requirements, and they just want to approach the planning specific needs of the organization, or maybe the consolidation requirements are really just an aggregation of actuals, more simplistic in nature. They would evaluate SAP Analytics Cloud, and maybe there's a drive to using a high-performance SaaS-based solution, which is how SAP Analytics Cloud is deployed for their users. So a lot of benefits with this tool, and integrates beautifully with SAP BPC, but generally, if you're going to adopt SAC on its own, you may not need the holistic unified planning and consolidation solution that BPC offers, or you don't have that sophisticated requirement, essentially. The other decision point around planning could be just BPC, and I'll come back to that in a second. I'll just kind of take your eyes down to the consolidation side of the house. Consolidation option at the bottom, which is S/4HANA for group reporting, or you could just call it group reporting for short, is really a consolidation solution that's embedded, for a lack of better terms. It's really built right within the SAP core ERP solution, or S4 HANA, essentially. So if you're not an SAP client, you would not be contemplating group reporting. So that, again, brings you back to BPC 11. So now, in the middle, this is where basically all planning and consolidation functionality really come together. And if you think about the original appeal with BPC, the reason why most Microsoft clients acquired that software in the first place was they wanted a unified application which was owned and maintained by the business for all their corporate performance management processes. And BPC 11 today is true to form. Like that is exactly what it does and what it's built to do. So I still see a very strong demand for BPC in the market, and clients gravitate to it based on their requirements. It can be deployed on-premise, as many clients have today, or certainly hosted. And that's why we have Protera on the line today, too, to speak about hosting options. Quite frankly, over the last couple of years, most of the clients that have adopted BPC and started to deploy it out, whether it's maybe a greenfield instance or net new functionality in a certain area, they want to deploy it in the cloud. We also have clients that are circling back to Jump Analytics to start talking about what it would take to take those on-premise workloads and migrate it to the cloud. And BPC represents a great starting point for doing that and testing that cloud functionality. So we're definitely seeing a lot of that. The vast majority of our clients are looking for a hosted solution. And we're going to get into a lot more detail there. And what I will say is there's very mature functionality within BPC. There's certainly a time and place to augment the landscape with SAP Analytics Cloud, but BPC is very mature in terms of its capability, and again, owned and maintained by the business. Next slide, Les. I do want to just kind of emphasize where a lot of the effort from an SAP perspective is, and where a lot of the innovation is, because it's important to our clients as they contemplate a move to BPC 11. You've probably heard about SAP Analytics Cloud. It is a great tool for running analytics and basically doing BI, nice graphical representation of the data, being able to do data mine. It also has that planning capability. Digital Boardroom is built on SAP Analytics Cloud and is basically your ability to go into a boardroom or on a touch screen, start navigating through your data and the visualizations to get to root cause analysis, do what if analysis, and really collaborate within the organization. It's a very cool tool, and again, because it's built on SAC, it integrates beautifully with BPC. In fact, we have a client that's looking to deploy Digital Boardroom, consume the BPC models that are already in place, and use it for financial reporting and dashboarding. And they want to have that up in their main boardroom on a regular basis, so that everyone in the organization has that visibility. BPC planning consolidation will be, again, that go-forward solution, SAP BPC. And where we say hybrid planning through integration with SAC, obviously BPC has been on the market for quite some time. There's virtually no planning, forecasting, or consolidation scenario that BPC can't manage. I would consider it a very mature corporate performance management tool, best in breed, and essentially can handle the full gamut of requirements that any organization may have. But determining where you can augment it, where some of the new innovation takes place with SAC would be important in my mind, either augmenting it for visualizations, dashboarding, predictive analytics, or potentially to replace, in some cases, replace some of the capabilities that are in BPC. And that all comes back to requirements and really the drive from the client. But we've seen it, and there's certainly an opportunity to do that if it makes sense. So that's a lot of the focus around the EPM solutions from SAP and what you're going to see in terms of their development moving forward. So BPC 11 and the core SAC in tandem. And I'll just say one of the first things they did with SAP Analytics Cloud when they released it a few years back was integrate it, build that strong integration with BPC. And then since then, they've been integrating it with any other cloud-based tool that you may have in your organization, like SuccessFactors, Concur, Ariba, and the list really just goes on. Les, if you want to go to the next slide, please. We don't have a demo today, but we can always arrange a demo for those on the line that would like to see BPC 11 for two reasons. Maybe understand what the enhancements are, which is really what this screen speaks to. but also to confirm the continuity between the BPC version that you have today and what the BPC 11 version offers. Because frankly, the end user experience from a BPC perspective is 100% consistent. You can leverage the EPM add-in, you build reports in Excel. Excel represents your window to all the BPC functionality behind the scenes. Security profiles, dimension members, all of this is very consistent with what you do today, which is a significant advantage to clients that are contemplating this move. Where you will see improvements is around the user interface. So especially the web pieces, which, on the Microsoft version or previous versions, they may have lacked a little bit. There's a new HTML5 or Fiori style. Fiori for SAP customers. It's a really nice interface or window into the application. And basically the entire web console adopts this web user interface, which is really nice and good to work with. There's also been enhancements on the web reporting and inputs. So, a lot of organizations still gravitate to Excel. I mean, we're finance, we like to work in Excel. I get that, but the option is there and it's real, where if you want to use the web reports and input forms, you certainly can. One of the most significant benefits that we're seeing with BPC 11 comes with the technical database that's underneath it. Basically, performance is extremely, extremely fast, especially in comparison to the Microsoft version or legacy versions of BPC. Even if it was the NetWeaver version that you were using on BW, the difference is night and day between what you're getting now. Basically, all the calculations, every other process that you run that could be a potential burden on the application that you're using today is pushed to the database level, right down to HANA. It's the in-memory appliance for running those calculations, and frankly, that's where it belongs. And it doesn't. Basically, the application will scream. It goes extremely fast, and there's a lot of analysis on this and benchmarking to show you the difference in performance between each of those versions. So that's one of the major differences, is really the database that it sits on, BW for HANA. A couple components with that is that it's an open database. BW for HANA is not the traditional BW that you may have heard of 3 years ago. BW 3 years and beyond would have been something cumbersome, and you would have needed to know SAP in order to maintain it, or typically only in an SAP shop. It's definitely designed to bring in data from various sources, but it was a little bit tricky to deal with. Well, BW for HANA changes. It's a huge paradigm shift. There's a lot of simplicity that's built into the ownership and maintenance and configuration, and there's an interface that is workable for just about any user. So it's easier to maintain, easier to model, and it's simplified in terms of the integration. So you can pull in data from, again, virtually any source within HANA, and it's not just, or BW for HANA, and it's not just the performance of calculations or processes in BPC that will work faster. It's actually that integration component will be faster. So even as simple as loading data is going to be extremely quick when you're using BW for HANA. So that's a major, major difference, and clients will look for lots of use cases for BW for HANA. You could throw non-SAP tools on top of it. SAP Analytics Cloud sits on top of it directly if you didn't use BPC. And again, you can consume data from just about any source, and you can work in it with a variety of different languages within the platform. On the consolidation side, there's a lot of new functionality. There's a consolidation monitor, controls monitor, where you can see sub-consolidations and where everyone is in the process. It supports time-dependent hierarchies, and I know that would be a hot topic, especially for certain organizations that are on the line today. It's been asked for a while. It has not been available, but in BPC 11, it is 100% available and something you can leverage. Improved logic around the equity pickup and sub-consolidations, which I already touched on, are entirely possible. On the planning side, it supports disaggregation, a lot cleaner than when you would have to kind of build logic around a disaggregation using allocations. It happens inherently within the solution, and of course you can modify how disaggregation works. And then again, links with SAP Analytics Cloud. So before I hand it over to talk a little bit more about cloud, I do want to just touch on SAP Analytics Cloud just quickly to talk about how that does work within BPC. So Les, if you want to go to the next slide, please. For those that are not familiar with SAP Analytics Cloud, it has all these three major functional areas: planning, business intelligence, and predictive. and it connects real time with BPC. So you're basically submitting data back and forth between BPC, and you're picking and choosing where you want certain processes run. So Analytics Cloud has a very nice web interface, and if you have light users of BPC that just need to submit data periodically and you don't need them going into an Excel template and going through a major process, you could easily have them going into SAC, and there are a lot of hybrid scenarios out there where they will use SAC as the interface to BPC to input data. Could be running planning calculations and modeling around revenue, headcount, OPEX, CAPEX, whatever it may be. It has a very strong allocation engine within it, and it's a bit more intuitive to use it than the allocation engine than it is to use it in BPC. So leveraging that functionality in SAC complements that BPC landscape wholeheartedly. So I've talked a lot about kind of what's new in the roadmap and how we arrived at where we are today. What I want to talk about next, Les, if you want to go to the next one, is really around the solution for your organization. So what we've been working on at Jump Analytics in tandem with Protera is a migration approach to get the Microsoft clients to BPC 11 on BW for HANA. And what that entails is a couple items on the right-hand side. So there's a migration utility that takes some of these components and automatically populates it into the BW for HANA database. Things like the models and dimensions can come over quite easily, and we're enhancing this utility as we go. But right now, the one piece that is that will always be a consideration is the logic components that need to be redrafted or reconfigured within the new solution. So when you're coming from Microsoft, you're using a certain type of logic. We're going to have to rewrite that in the new version. But everything else, reports, input forms, templates, security profiles, models, dimensions, properties, they come over very cleanly. So we have the migration utility and a process around any of the remaining tasks. We have a data conversion program and templates. We're not going to just take the application over and the configuration points. Clearly, you're going to need some historical data, and there's a process for bringing that historical data, and it's a discussion around how much data you may need. Maybe it's an opportunity to do some cleanup. And then we would just kind of determine the plan for bringing over that data and a testing strategy. We also provide testing templates and user guides for the new solution, as well as training. The training is more just working with you or working with the core team for a couple half-day sessions to make sure that everyone's comfortable with the new functionality and what it means to be using BW for HANA. But overall, it's functionally a very, very, very similar or basically the same product. This is also where we get into essentially that cloud discussion. As I mentioned before, if you're not interested in building the capability or hiring for the capability in-house to manage BW for HANA, or maybe you have a cloud strategy anyway, or this is a good starting point or test bed for cloud, this is the point where a lot of our clients are saying, let's evaluate the cloud. And this is where Protera comes in with their expertise to give visibility on what that service would look like. So the benefits of this approach, obviously, it goes without saying, you have a lot of continuity in the product itself between what you're using today and the net new tool. You're using the latest in SAP Analytics. I say predictable cost and quick ROI. That goes without saying. You're using the same solution. The migration program, which Pat is going to talk about in a little bit more detail momentarily, is very straightforward, and in fact, even our estimation process is very predictable as well. So I think that would be welcome to everyone here. The improvements on performance are huge. You get to leverage, if you choose to leverage SAP Analytics Cloud, that's an option to you. And then again, this is an option for you to determine that cloud deployment. So that's what I wanted to cover. I've already got some questions coming in, and I'll address them at the end. But for now, what I'll do is I'll pass it over to our friends at Protera to talk about what service offerings could benefit this type of approach. And then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to talk to you about the hosting option available, especially when you're doing a BPC 11, it has to run on a HANA platform. HANA is a memory database and has special equipment to run on. If you choose to do it in-house, you would have to have a vendor who is actually certified for SAP appliance, and this appliance has very rigid environment and very rigid requirements. To be able to support all the in-memory functions, that's the reason they did that. Now, there's all kinds of options available for you, and we have end-to-end solution for you in the cloud. And could be a private cloud, a public cloud, or any of the different cloud options. It just makes sense, and I would like to talk about some of the benefits here. The functional AMS, what would be all the functionality of the BPC 11 would be managed by a Jump Analytic, and they would able to help all the customers like application fixes, end user support, training, user rights management. Everything below, we would able to handle it, and we work very seamlessly together, so the customer wouldn't have to worry about the hosting, all the application layers, all the way up to the functionality. They just can use the tools. Protera would handle all the technical AMS pieces and parts. We would able to support you the OS, the database, the SAP basis, all the pieces and parts, the technical patches, backup, DR, capacity planning, technical help decks, performance reporting. Anything what will go out of bound, we would able to handle it for you and fix it fairly quickly. The infrastructure, the public, private, and hybrid, the cloud hosting, compute, the storage, network, connectivity, and all the security, all can be handled, and you don't have to worry about it. Now, how you would engage us, how you would able to, if you have an issue, or how this would work. If we host it in the cloud, Protera AppCare would provide a service level agreement, and we would able to handle all the information what is coming in. If you have a service level service ticket, for example, you have an issue in the system, we will triage it, we will go through, fix it for you, and we will communicate all this way step by step. Production and non-production system would have SLA agreement. AMS on steady state. AMS means application management for you. Monthly is based on monthly service fee. So you pay one fee and it's covered everything. Doesn't matter what the issue is, we will take care of it. Guaranteed availability objectives, guaranteed performance objectives, and guaranteed business continuity objectives. So if you choose to have because it's very important for you to be up 24/7, we will address that with a DR and an AJ environment if it's needed. Our services are proactive. You can consider us as an extension to your own team. We will proactively monitor the system, and we will see in the system if it's using up all the memory and you have more data in it and needs to do something. We will discuss it with you, and we will able to fix it before the system is breakdown. Incident resolution processes, we're certified in SAP globally, and we're using ITIL processes all the way through. Cloud benefits. If you go to the cloud, you don't have to worry about your hardware and hardware obsolescence. You don't have to, you have incredible flexibility. You will able to choose and change on the fly. For example, if you want to test something out, but you don't know if you really want to bring that application into your environment and your landscape, you can ask Protera to spin up a copy of your production system, modify a test that, figure out if this is what you want to do. And if this is what you want to do, you can bring back to the dev system and go through the change process to your production system. But you have the flexibility to do it or not to do it, it's the scalability is there. You can grow 10-fold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold in the cloud. Is not going to limit you. If you have an on-site service and on-site hardware, you will have to worry about it on the hardware capability, and you have to change it. You have life cycle, the patching, all these things you have to worry about it. On the cloud, you just pay what you use for. Agility, rapid service platform onboarding. We can spin up these servers in the cloud automatically in minutes. So you have incredible agility and flexibility. There is built-in security and governance model. So in the cloud is all certified. There's hundreds of certification what they go through. The security on the cloud providers, on the hardware and the network layer is taken care of. Protera will take care of it all the way to the application, and then application on, if you choose functional AMS, will be taken care of our partner, Jump Analytics. Efficiency. If you compare a cloud solution with an in-house solution, most of the time there is reduced cost, reduced complexity, and is much more efficient way to run the services. We're available if you want to go through a TCO exercise with us. We're more than happy to help you. Our design, run, and deploy is all SAP-centric in our perspective. Protera is a SAP-centric organization, but we do full IT hosting too if there is some SAP part of the customer. But we, like for example, with BPC 11, that's an SAP product, we would be able to engage, and whatever you need, we would be able to provide that for you. BPC Deployment Options. So you have the scenario is when you have some kind of ERP system feeding your BPC system and they communicate back and forth. If you choose to do the BPC on the cloud, but it makes sense, then this will be the hybrid scenario one. The other scenario for the deployment will be when you take your ERP and BPC in the cloud, and now they are next to each other. You have all the cloud benefit, plus you're able to use both of them. They're able to communicate much better because they are on the same segment and cloud. As a user, it really doesn't see the difference. They just see the same screens. Doesn't really matter if it's scenario one or scenario two. They use the same screens.
Yeah, if I can make a quick comment there, actually what I'm seeing a lot of, and maybe it's just because a lot of the organizations I happen to be dealing with over the last little while are maybe just ramping up on their cloud strategy. But a lot of what I am seeing are the hybrid scenarios. So really it does, scenario one, where it doesn't really matter where ERP is today, it's generally on-prem, but they're adopting BPC in the cloud as a starting point. Maybe with a plan to bring ERP over and kind of adopt that scenario too, or just at least to get BPC there to recognize some of the performance and remove the burden of maintaining an application. So I just want to kind of make that comment, but that's definitely what I'm seeing a lot of.
Thank you. And it's a very good way to actually test out the cloud also, because you will have a full stack and you will be able to see all the processes and services what is provided, that you're not going to see any difference, or you're not going to have a breakdown in the process. And how we achieve this, we have a cloud infrastructure, and we're working with AWS and all the big cloud providers like Azure. We are cloud, we don't really care which cloud you're going, we're there. And we have a long experience to working with both of the major cloud providers. We have different services. So if somebody chooses to implement the cloud on their own account and they need help on supporting it like a Cloud Plus services, that's when you're using a service desk, a compute storage admin, network admin, setting up different firewalls and access to the cloud. We can help you that. We can help you on the operating support when you do the OS support, the server monitoring, patching, file system management, trending and growth, and security management. If you need DR and backup management, we have solution for that. And it's very different when you do a DR and backup solution on the cloud than on-site. It's worth to take the time and look at the two different scenarios. There's much more flexibility in the cloud, and there's all kinds of options to save money. Now, technical AMS support, when we take the whole stack from the database and SAP, and we going and take care of all the capacity management, the problem resolution and management, transport all the changes, monitoring the solution, patching the solution as they're coming out from SAP. And we will really manage that. You can think about it as an extended team of your organization, and we will take care of all those things. We have standard uptime availability for productive system is 99.5% and non-productive system is 95%. If you need higher than that, we can provide that with an AJ. Most customers don't really need that. Besides that, in the cloud, there is all kinds of flexibility, and they even have like a cloud server is dies, they restart that. So it's when you think about in the cloud and AJ, you really need to drill into it because there's all kinds of option available there. Additional services and optional services, cross-region replication. Like for example, you have a requirement that if you go down in the US, you want to come up in Europe, we can support that. Is optional because it's more technically challenged and is more cost involved, but we're more than happy to help you on it. SAP security, if you don't have an in-house SAP security, we're able to help you on that. Partner services like the functional AMS is handled by our partners. Now, how we deliver the services and how we want to make sure that our customers have full visibility of our services and how it's managed by the customer. When we engage with our customers, we assign a primary and a secondary person. The primary person will be very familiar with the customer system. So when you engage with us, you're not going to have the issue that like a big company goes in and like we have a problem and they try to triage it with a subject matter expert who never saw your system. Are people going to manage it internally in Protera and will pull the correct subject matter expert in to fix the issue? But the person who is managing it are very familiar with our customers' systems. So they know exactly, they have monthly meetings with you. So they're really an extended team of the customer. In the monthly review, you will get the dashboard and you will going to see your availability, how many incidents, how many tickets came in, performance review, like the system is underutilized, overutilized, change management, how much change is happening in your system. It's very useful. And most of our customers, they started to share roadmap with us because they want to be ready for the changes and want to make sure that we're able to support them and give us the time to prep up. With the cloud, there's all kinds of options. Like, for example, if you know that you have a peak period and you want to step up, you can tell us and we can bring the CPUs up and we bring you more capacity to handle the peak loads. If you have a system what you are using for training and only use it for 2 months a year, you can shut down the rest of them and you don't get charged for it. So there's a lot of things what we can optimize for your operation. But in the monthly report, they do incident management and they look at all the different incidents in the past month, and not just the past month, but in trending. So like, for example, a year ago, like the incidence is coming up more and more. There is something going on, something changed in the system. Do we need to bring in a functional expert like jump on? I think they look at the system, why it is occurring. Stability, performance management, capacity management, nice, slowly creeping up. We know we need to get a bigger server. Change management, project summary. If there's a special project going on, how is it impacting in the system? And the project close out, is the system stable? We will give you recommendations, like based on what we see in the system to make sure that your operation is stable. Schedule business event. If you know that you have a very important things and you need to do, we will be able to provide extra support for that. And I think we're going back to the migration approach.
Okay, that's great. This is Pat Hickey from Jump Analytics, and thanks Les, and thanks Justin for the great background on the benefits of the most recent versions of SAP's BPC product, along with the benefits of the cloud. Now, the next step is, how do I get there? And the answer, of course, really depends on where you're starting from. If you're a current BPC NetWeaver customer that uses the NetWeaver version of SAP, then there is actually quite a direct path to convert much of your data into the latest version of BPC, which is BPC 11 on BW for HANA. But if you're a Microsoft user, the previous answer was, well, you redeploy or you re-implement. Now with the migration utility that Justin referred to earlier in the presentation, along with our tailored migration approach, this whole component could be much more streamlined and reducing the effort of not only the consulting resources you require for this deployment, but also you can greatly reduce the amount of internal time that your finance and IT people internally will need to spend on this migration effort to move it over to the latest version of BPC. Now, the other key in this whole scenario is the notion of managed cloud. And one of the biggest inhibitors, especially for the Microsoft version of BPC, is how am I going to gain the skill sets required around HANA, around BW for HANA? I don't have these, I'm running a Microsoft scenario. With the managed cloud service that Protera offers, it effectively takes away that issue because they manage it for you, and all you're really doing is consuming the product much in the same way that you've consumed your previous version of BPC. So I do like that easy button image that they had on some of their slides. Now, the first step in the program from a migration approach is really the design component. And the fact that if you're a customer already using BPC, this provides you a tremendous advantage because effectively the design is kind of done in terms of the business usage of it. So really we get focused on assessing your existing BPC environment so that we can analyze how many reports, how many input forms, areas where you have custom logic, and if you're on the Microsoft version, you've got perhaps stored procedures. So we do a very quick assessment here to determine what the situation is for your existing environment. And then we look at the fun part, which is identifying what the solution enhancements can be. And maybe it's taking advantage of some of the increases and benefits of functionality in BPC 11, or maybe it's taking advantage of the slick reporting interface with SAP's Analytics Cloud solution. But it gives you a time to do that. Or quite frankly, maybe it's just you can use this time to migrate to really solve some of the process issues that you have with your existing BPC environment. And it's an excellent time to be able to resolve some of those components and those issues. The other element during the design phase is with Protera's FlexBridge plan, they would design the cloud strategy. So they have a proven and planned approach for that. And then, of course, as part of the design is not only what the actual solution is going to look like, but having a detailed plan as to what it's going to take to effectively go live with the new version. Now, the next phase is the deploy phase. And in this phase, we're really setting up the new system in the cloud. We're running the migration utility on your existing BPC Microsoft scenario so that we can migrate a number of those elements across, things like the dimensions, things like the reports, things like the input forms, and a few other elements. And then we go to a step of configuring the manual tasks. And largely that comes to actually converting the logic that's written into your BPC Microsoft solution into the BPC 11 platform. And this is the one area that there really is not a conversion routine for. So, but it's a very mechanical process, and it's understanding what's in your existing logic package and then making sure that we put that forth in the new version of SAP. Of course, we take the time to identify those new enhancements that you want to bring into it and to make sure that they're set up and configured correctly on the system. Or if you are looking at deploying as an option the SAP Analytics Cloud scenario, this is the time that we would actually deploy that and implement and configure those functions as well. Now, the key point to mention here is there's really not a lot of these enhancements will take much time from your internal team and much time from your internal finance organization, as they tend to be more technical things that we need to make sure that are going to work in the new version. And then finally, the last stage is, yes, we have to test it to make sure it's going to work and hit the mark. We have to make sure that there's some training and knowledge transfer done, and that's very minimal because don't forget, the main UI or the main user interface is still EPM add-in that your users were probably very familiar with, the Excel EPM add-in, and that remains. So it's a relatively simple knowledge transfer session, and then it's going live, and then finally it's enabling your application and hosting managed service platform. So again, make sure that you've not only built a good solution, but you've got a solution that's easily maintainable and is going to require minimal effort down the road for you to be able to support this system. Les, if you can move to the next slide, please. So, typical migration plan. So what we see here is a typical migration plan for a customer migrating from a BPC Microsoft solution to a BPC solution, BPC 11 solution on BW4 HANA. And so a lot of the main steps that you would have seen in your original implementation are still in place. So there's still a assessment or design phase as part of that. It's just a lot shorter because we effectively are able to glean a lot of information already about your solution design based on your existing solution right now. Then there's a component to deploy the new hardware sitting in the cloud. So that'll take a little bit of time to do. And the majority of time with your migration approach is really in this blue box in the middle. And this is very typical, around a 4-week exercise. And this is to make sure that the conversion utility is run. And for those elements that are brought over, such as the dimensions and the reports and the input forms, that we take a look at it, we tweak it if it's required to make sure it's going to work with the new environment. And then we effectively rewrite the logic, the data source or ETL processes, and make sure we have the business rules set up correctly in the target BPC 11 system. Of course, if SAC examples are being deployed, we can put this in place at this point in time. And again, the point in this blue section here is that a lot of this is a mechanical task, and certainly it shouldn't be a large drain on your internal organization to accomplish this. And then finally, we get the system rolled out here. So this example shows a 10-week program, which again, depending on the complexity, is a very typical type of migration time frame that you can consider for your migration to BPC 11. So Les, you can move to the next slide. Okay, so next steps. So you're intrigued, you're interested. What do I need to do to find out more information? Or what do I need to do to find out the information that is specific to my situation as a customer running a solution? Well, the first step is that if you can spare a half day or less of your time, then we can effectively assess your situation. And we've developed a quick and painless survey approach, which is a series of questionnaires and some interviews and clarifications of those questionnaires to effectively assess your existing BPC functional and technical environment, to look at where those deltas on potential functional enhancements that you want to take advantage of with the new release of SAP. And then we'll also identify those areas where you can get substantial performance enhancements. And of course, the benefit, as we've learned on the BPC 11 platform, which is run in HANA, the processing time is lightning quick. So it does allow us to take a look at those areas where you may be setting yourself up for different techniques to deal with performance constraints on BPC. Those can now be looked at fresh, and we can say, okay, guess what? We can eliminate those bottlenecks, and maybe there's a different plan to move things forward. And then finally, we can do the FlexBridge Discovery Cloud Assessment so that we can understand, what your environment will need to look like in the cloud. So again, this process around gathering this information can take place in a half day or less with our approach that we've identified. Secondarily, we can certainly give you a chance to look at what your environment or what you would like to see in a BPC 11 system, and also looking at scenarios built with SAP Analytics Cloud. So again, with the information we've gathered about your existing environment, we can play back a demonstration that will give you a very good perspective of what your system would look like on the newest release of SAP. And then finally, we'll come to the table with the plan and the proposal that includes the effort, the timeline, and of course the cost to migrate your version 11 system to version 11 rather, and to manage your BPC environment sitting in the cloud. Okay, well, thank you very much for your attention, and I'm going to pass it back to you, Kristen, to take us through the question and answer component.
Excellent. Sounds great. Thank you so much to all of our presenters, Justin, Pat, Les. Great job. Hopefully it answered a lot of questions as we get started here. So if you have any questions at this time, you can type it into the Q&A function, which is on the bottom panel of the Zoom webinar. And we'll give it a few minutes here as questions are coming in, and then we'll start to answer some of those.
Yeah, actually, Kristen, I have a couple. There was a couple questions that came in while I was talking that I'll address quickly now. One of the questions was around enhancements. Pat, I think you covered that piece nicely, which is essentially, it's very simple to go through our process to do a technical migration and bring your application to BPC 11, but it is also an opportunity to layer in enhancements, which could impact the timeline and maybe your involvement. But the hood's open, so it might be an opportunity to explore that. But one of those, a specific example that I want to highlight that is real, because it's a client that I'm working with right now, has a lot of logic that's written that could easily have been done using the business rules. And I believe it was done like this, it's going back a while, but it was done like with logic and or stored procedures due to performance. And they were trying to work around maybe some of the limitations with Microsoft and try to milk as many performance gains as possible. Now this is an opportunity to use standard business rules and business logic that any user can work with. So that was one example that I wanted to highlight, because it's an opportunity to kind of revector the organization to a lot more standard or out-of-the-box functionality. The other question I got was, how long has BPC 11 been on the market? It was released mid-2017. As many of you on the phone will know, there's well over 8,000 BPC clients around the world. That will include a very large contingent of Microsoft versions that have adopted BPC. But they've adopted BPC over the past decade or so. BPC 11 in just under 2 years has 850 deployments of BPC, whether they're full deployment in production or they're midstream. Which, if you think about it, in under 2 years, there's not a lot of organizations that can talk about that uplift. So, and you have to think there, and I know for a fact there's a lot of those clients that have moved over from Microsoft to adopt the BW for HANA version. So those are two questions. The other one was around BW migrations to BW for HANA, which Pat, you've already mentioned very nicely, which is a very simple migration path, which is technical in nature, but it's known. And if there's details that are required on that one, I'm happy to provide it after the session today.
Awesome. Les, could you go to the last slide just with a quick update on our website information? So if anyone has any more information or more questions, excuse me, we will be sending out email after this webinar with our full link to the recording, also some email information to get started on the BPC Migration Assessment Survey with the Jump Analytics and Protera team. But if you have any other questions or want more information, there's a lot actually on our websites, protera.com and jumpanalytics.com. Where you can get a little bit more information on BPC. Well, I think that's it for today. Again, thank you so much to our presenters for their time, a lot of great information, and thank you all for attending. We really appreciate it and look forward to working with you soon.
Thank you.